Hello everyone, System Chalk here with what's technically the third episode of the, well, Lord Stabbe's rather ruthless pursuit of all the smarts. I won't do this for every introduction, but for those of you who are new to this series, these are going to be some longer videos. I'll try to make them about an hour. And really this is just a chance for me to try and keep a lineage of all of my playthroughs. For those of you who haven't noticed for Cultist Simulator, it does actually refer to your previous playthroughs in some cases. If you look at the save file, you'll actually specifically see the name of your previous character written inside of it. I believe if you leave it empty, is it Jason Ombre, I think? There's definitely a default name that they use. But in any case, in this case, I sort of wanted to try and carry on with the physician. One nice side effect is that it gives me a chance to show people some of the more basic legacies and me going through it. It does give me a chance to get a few achievements, which I haven't gotten inside of the game yet. And it'll be a little bit more freeform, so I know this may not appeal to everyone who liked the Apostle Obstinate playthrough, but the good news there is that I do have a very clear idea of what the next series is going to be. Hopefully the longer run times will allow me to get through this a little bit quicker. This is going to be sort of my break between major series, and I think I've probably got 2 or 3 big Cultist Simulator plans in mind, and it's really just a matter of finding the time to record it. Anyways, it's almost been 2 minutes, and we only have an hour together, so let's see if we can make some progress. We've got 5 locations that we want to explore. We've done a decent enough job keeping our notoriety in check. We have a Season of Visions coming up. Now, if I want, I would normally paint Old Unhappy Far Off Things, but if if everything works out, I'm going to wind up with a dread which will quiet my visions. I'm currently seeing things, painting whispers, windows wink. I know these things are not true, but how can I be certain? So one of the big things that I'm trying to do as well is get some poison, because Connie Lee is quite good at dealing with both mystical and mundane threats. So, let's say we'll go straight to Keeglan's Scratch. Here the Romans dug for silver until they reached the unsanctioned space where the names hid things not fit for sunlight. Many others have come since then, even as the tunnels crumble. Some never left. So what I'm going to do here is I'll take the hint and the Callagine. Now this puts the Percussagant at risk. What I'm going to do in 52 seconds is just try and resummon it with either the Rite of the Crucible Soul or the Watchman's Sorrow. We prepare for the descent. We bring rope, tools, light. We arm ourselves against anything down there that may yet move. One other thing that's different about this particular playthrough, so one thing about the way that I play Cultist Simulator is that it really reflects the fact that I've been playing the game since its early alpha, when it was just sort of a prototype that was out on itch.io by essentially, I think I knew of it before the Horizon signal, but one way or the other, it's a it's a game that I played for a very long time, and I can remember back when it had no hints whatsoever. You had to make sense of all of these cards, as opposed to optimism is the spice which saves. So here you'll sort of get a little bit of a marker in terms of where things go, and there'll be sort of advice in terms of what happens. Obviously, when you're prototyping a game, you don't necessarily want to put all of those details inside, and so a large part of my experience was really just sort of brute forcing as many combinations as I could. It wasn't necessarily the most fun, but of course the themes of this game are very compelling. So one of the things that I've tended to neglect in a lot of my playthroughs are romance, maybe much like my real life, as he says, as if it were a choice. But in this particular case here, I've carried on a romance with Enid, who is interested. This is someone who's developed a romantic interest in me. One thing, I wonder where that lantern came from. Is that because of that's probably because of the interest. That's probably because of the interest, seeing as we shared the desire for knowledge. Interesting. So the romance sparks a little something of the flame. Very Plotinus. Okay, cool. So the that's neat. I should double check that that's the source of that lantern, but I actually really like that idea. So I'm just going to pause for some water. So the one thing is that after starting the romance, I don't have a whole lot. There aren't a lot of clues to me as to whether or not there's, extra levels to go up, or, just in general, I'm not 100% sure if there's there's anything more for me to do with the romance, or if it's just something that kind of winds up ticking away at different times. That's not necessarily a defect if it is, but in this case here, because it's new, I'm not 100% sure if I need to be following it. And of course, because it's not the the ambition, right? I'm not trying to, romance isn't an ascension, so as it were. I don't really feel the need to put as much effort into it. I suspect that's one of the reasons why it's one of those events that actually pops up and takes time away, because of course you need to spend time with someone. If you neglect someone, that relationship's probably not going to be lasting very long. And so that might be something that's taking you away from, your real centering purpose. So we'll see. Again, I'm happy to maintain the status quo with Enid, but I should try and see if there's something else that I can do with the romance options. Moving right along, the question before me right now is, do I want to try and spike this extra notoriety while I can, or do we try and bring some more people into the cult? I think let's try and clear out the notoriety. We've been pretty lucky with Connie's investigation so far, but it'd be better if we can just clear it all out. So let's take Dorothy. We'll talk about the Church of the Bright Edge again. We'll see if we can charm our way out of the trouble. So again, I'll put the percussagant in just to preserve... Well, there's no point in preserving it for a bit longer. We are, however, going to need... so I believe Edge will help us here. But I do want to add Laidlaw for the treacherous ground. Alright, so we've developed an understanding of the long-dead Fusine language. In places, it overlaps with languages I know. In other places, well, I can see why they call it the tongue of witches, but I can understand it well enough now. So, we now have 4 languages. I don't necessarily need to use all of them, but we do have our Sanskrit, we do have the Flayed Tantra. So this Tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, with many of the qualities of the mythological Naga. The Flayed Tantra played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering. So we will translate that, and we'll get around to summoning the percussagant, or resummoning the percussagant momentarily. I was on a roll with these. Let's try the Ascent of Knives again, but this might actually get me some winter. Yep. Should have done the Painted River. Winter passes the clothes, passes the skin, nestles in the veins. A 10th order influence, a gathering knot of power and peril. I visited the Ascent of Knives last night, that harshest of roads through the house. It has been sacred to the Menascate and the sun and rags since the intercalate, when the true sun was divided. When I woke, my room was freezing. The chill of it had cracked the window glass. So this is a little bit of a liability. What I'll probably wind up doing is just bringing someone into the cult and using this as an influence. We've got our job done, but let's do the Rite of the Crucible Soul. Now this is specifically so that we can bring the percussagant back. This rite uses an instrument of power to set the blood of fire. Fire is the lesion in the skin of the world. The assistant rarely survives unharmed. So we could use either Knock Lore or the Icon of St. Agnes. In this case, I can just bring this instrument in. Now, the nice thing here is I don't actually need to use anything for the invocation. One thing that might be kind of nice, I think the Watchman's Sorrow requires me to give up Lore. Now, this is an interesting question. So if I did the Sunset Rite, and I offered the Winter, then I brought in the Percussagant and the Iguvine Rite, would I get rid of... How much you want to bet that I get rid of the Winter doing it this way? So this is the assistant must cry tears of genuine emotion, which are asperged in the place where the influence lies. If all is done well, the sun and rags will consume the influence, acknowledge an ending, and lend its assistance. So I'm a little curious how that one's going to turn out. We may wind up with 2 percussagants, which kind of sounds like a wonderfully indie rendition of the 12 Days of Christmas. All right. The stag door is the adept's gate. To pass it is to be initiated into the first true mystery of the House of the Sun. The head Gearby weeps to see me enter where it cannot, but it must let me pass. The scarred valves of the door grind open. Okay, we invoke the Madrigard, the hour of the Forge, as well as Winter. We'll make our own path through. Success is almost certain. Now, I've always kind of wondered, so we call, obviously some of the entities in the Mansis, I think it's fair to say the entities in the Mansis, but people like the Madrigard, essentially, ours do not always associate with a single principle, which is interesting. It's very hard to see how Winter would help us over the treacherous ground, but I've always sort of wondered if there's something to be done with that, in terms of, particular hours granting assistance. Like, so it would not make any sense at all to do treacherous ground and use Winter to overcome that. That's definitely a very Forge kind of a thing. And yet, I always wondered, I tend to associate, I see references to the principles, but for a very long time, I always associated hours with principles. I, in some cases, used them interchangeably, and that's very clearly not true. In fact, as far as I can tell, we don't actually know of all the hours. We know the number, I believe, but the world of the Secret Histories has more than... so it's more than just Cultist Simulator now. There's a standalone RPG called The Lady Afterwards that's just recently been released. Actually, the catalyst stream for this series was kind of celebrating that, although there will be a digital version without all of the nice sort of box set of it. That'll be released a bit later. Why is my meteoric bullet in the Forge column? Shame on them. And then, of course, there's Book of Hours, which should be releasing next year. But yeah, so basically, because I tend to associate hours with principles, which obviously is not completely unfair, but it's easy to get misled when you do that. I've always sort of wondered if I... how do I put it? I've wondered if some... an expansion of maybe some of those mechanics... Again, this kind of falls also where I get into the trap. Like, I do enjoy sort of having my own little story in the background in terms of who the person is and shaping my individual decisions around that. But the fact of the matter is I still play this as a game. I still pursue enlightenment. I still move the cards where I need to. And as a consequence, sometimes little things like romance, like, what do I say? Enid, oh, what a wonderful person. Enid speaks softly. Sometimes her gaze doesn't focus on anything visible. She sees things that others don't. And, some of the descriptions of the, the dates or the, the interludes and twists and interludes and such. I don't always necessarily, how did I talk about Enid at the start of this broadcast? I didn't talk about her as my lover. I talked about her as the romance option in which I'm not sure if there are higher levels, which is maybe not the most romantic way of thinking about a person. So, but I mean, of course, this is always going to happen inside of games, right? I sort of jump between the two levels, which is kind of how I think. I don't know if most people play it that way, but I found that to be the satisfying way to play it. The Flayed Tantra, alright, so we've already... Nothing new here, so let's just read it out. Flayed Tantra appeal was numbered among the great hooded princes, but it breaks with its brethren and followed the Thunderskin in the endless dance. Alright, so rebellious spirit, unlucky me. So we learned our lesson. I'm ready to improve. The Painted River runs from a great chamber near the White Door, far through the Mansis, to its far edge where it enters a painted delta of far cloud. I voyaged half its length last night with a stern-faced captain beneath a rust-red sail. As the clouds rose before us, the sailors raised a yearning shanty and close-hauled the sails to best use the painted wind, and all the while the captain and I discoursed on the secrets of the House of the Sun. So here, because my Season of Ambitions does actually eat some erudition or reason, it does give me a reason to keep getting this erudition lesson learned. Just because it makes life a little bit easier when I don't satisfy the requirement. In this case here, I think I'm just going to banish the Percussagant. I'm going to hopefully have one left over. The earth is hungry. A promising root reveals itself as a sucking snare. We'll have to go around and try again. Let's see if anybody gets wounded. They do. Our numbers dwindle, so we lost the hint. Now that's actually going to cause us some trouble a bit later on when we try to bring in, or when we try to defeat the dead. So talking wise, we're okay. I think now is the time for me to either try and get a hireling or to try and bring in some more cult members. I think I'm going to try and bring in some more cult members. Talking publicly about the invisible arts will attract attention. Perhaps that's what I want. So we'll bring in some money to reinforce. It is banished or destroyed. So what we're going to do with this, we get another round on the treacherous ground. It's gone, we're safe. So I'm going to do basically the same thing, except we're going to use the lantern, which would turn into fascination if I don't deal with it. So we'll grab this percussagant, we will use the Iguvine Rite, and summon the creature of the Thunderskin. The percussagant, merciless and merry, heart will bring it, edge will constrain it. And we'll actually have quite a bit of vitality coming up. We won't really make any use of it, but my own heart pumps more strongly today. Oop, and just in time. Okay, another season of suspicion coming up, but again, Connie doesn't have anything on us, so we'll be good. Or we'll be fine, rather. We will definitely not be good. We may generate a mystique, but I don't think the issue is going to last long enough for us to have to worry about Connie Lee. Once Peel had peeled itself, it had the ink it needed to write the Tantra. It had to face the wrath of its fellows. Here is the invocation it used to fend them off. So we've got another level for our studies. I'm actually going to have to move everyone now. So the Geminate Invocation, the Sister Witch, has always been invoked for protection at crossroads, at moonrise, and where the land shelters the seed. Okay, so let's say we'll move the commissions to the people who want them. This still may not be enough space, but it's going to be enough space for now. So there's one more heart follower. I guess we can we can put a gap between the two. This is one of the things that I didn't always get to do in the shorter form videos. I obviously would like to take the time to properly set the table. Let's also change, so let's maybe put in our language knowledge into something a little different. Yeah, so this closer association between the Mansis and language. Now these are possessions, so let's put these up here. Rituals are another question. This is going to be a pain to move around the board, but I'm trying to put some sense around all this. Not quite sure this is going to work, but let's see how well we can handle it. I'm a little worried I'm going to run out of space. But how about we deal with that when it actually comes up? Of course, the problem here is that I have all this space on the right-hand side now, so what do I do with that? Guess I could put the possessions there. Alright, we'll see how that works for a little while. I think, again, I'm going to have to switch it all around. I'll probably wind up using the lore sort of horizontally, but this should get me a Forbidden Epic. The attention of the hours is drawn to the bloodiest wars. Afterwards, the histories are braided like hair. So, here I would need either... Right, so erudition, HQ with a library. This one needs glimmerings or an HQ with a sanctuary. For some reason, I thought that there would be a... There'd be a trait that I could have as well. Apparently I'm wrong on that. There's a great chamber in the manses through which a painted river flows. The vagabond, it is claimed, painted it from memory in the years before she left the house. Certainly, there are histories concealed in its design. I traced them with my hand last night. There were fragments of aquamarine paint beneath my nails, flecks of gold leaf when I was done. So, and as always, we just keep going back to the stag door when we can. And the other question is, what do I want to use my study verb for? There's actually not... It's not as clear. I suppose one thing I could try would be to upgrade a few of these, some of this lore. Normally I've kind of had this big column of lore, and I've kind of kept that way for a while. But in this particular case, I actually want to try... So I tend to take a very leisurely pace with Cultist Simulator. And this time I'd maybe like to try and make the most... I'm not necessarily going to like aggressively pursue a particular ending, but it would be kind of nice to use all of the tools that I have in the toolbox. So for instance, I'm able to upgrade Lantern, Moth, and Winter influence to its higher levels, and there's really no reason for me to avoid doing that. So for, here we would want to make sure that we had either the we want erudition or an HQ with a library, and then we want the glimmering... Oh, actually, do we have a rarefied mind? No, we have a silent intensity. Okay. So, yeah, trying to get erudition and glimmering would be an idea here. So let's start with the erudition. The world is awash with printed words. Even newspapers contain knowledge sometimes. Okay. Acquaintance is coming up, so I believe in 6 seconds Connie will abandon... Well, she won't abandon, but she won't have found any evidence, and so the mystique will not hurt us. A hunter has found notoriety, they will try to use it to create or upgrade evidence. If they're meticulous, they'll always succeed. If they're erratic, they're more likely to fail, but they can occasionally create evidence even without notoriety. Okay, more heart. First the thump, then the rattle and cry of the ceremonies it attends in the wood. Now here it is, shouldering its way through the world's skin, like a clawed and ruthless uncle or a headless flapping bear. Alright, so I got 15 seconds with my old percussivant. We're mud spattered and thorn scratched, but we've made it through. So I am I'm going to do something to try and preserve this percussivant for a little while. Let's try and paint it. No, that's not the right thing to do. Let's go back to the Institute, because we've not been making money for a little while. Okay, so I'm going to put this one in the Expedition, but we're not going to keep it there. This is going to be something of a riskier move that I'm taking, but we're going to lose the percussivant anyway, so I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they found no new clues. So let's put Connie... We'll maybe make this the threat box. So this percussivant's going to help us with the Fretful Dead. This is a tricky one. So if I want to summon something, I can. Let's do the Ascent of Knives again. Of the place my dreams took me last night, this has been written. The ascent is glass, the walls are knives, each step is blood. I did not climb far, the pain was too great. When I woke, that pain remained with me, a pain I could employ to occult purposes if I hurry. Alright, so we found Leo. We'll add them to the cult when we can. For now, though, we're going to talk with this percussivant. We are going to send it after Connie Lee. Now, the thing is that Connie Lee is, they do have the aspect mystic. So my minion is powerful. This hunter is unlikely to survive, but the attempt will draw attention. Failure will kill your minion. So the reason I feel okay doing this is that we're already going to lose it in 9.7 seconds. There's the 1 in 3 chance, on top of just the mere chance of failure, there's also the 1 in 3 chance that Connie's sort of defense against the dark arts will help her out as well. In this case here, I'm just taking a chance on something. It's the worst that happens to me is I get a notoriety, but I'm already going to be trying to get rid of the notoriety from this expedition anyway. So, although it is worth remembering here that because we're at 8 edge, so I do actually want to add another follower. So these dead, with their avid, pitiful eyes, have died once already. Their hold on the waking world is weak. We should be able to send them down into darkness, but we must take care. Well, we'll add Victor. And our strength is matchless. The dead are as pale as inverse shadows. They move like cobwebs in a breeze. Almost certainly they can't stand before us. We'll send them mumbling back to the shadows of the wood. And the words contain knowledge, and now I contain it. It's a little like theft, a little like feasting, and a little like the progress of an infectious disease. So we will now read something a little lighter. If I propose to learn anything, I wouldn't be reading this stuff. And once again, we go back through the snag door, just because it works to. Sorry, just have a quick message to send. So as always, there's the risk that we won't succeed against the dead, but you can kind of see the differences between the characters. We talked about this last time. With Ike Upscribe, we pretty much never used sacrifices, and we pretty much never used edge to solve issues. I don't believe we've gotten past an obstacle which has an edge component without using the edge. So just communicates a couple of different approaches, personalities. When the dead return to us, they use what matter they can if their bodies are gone. Dust, rust, cobwebs, scrapes, and tatters. Now that we have broken them, these tatters are all that remain. So violence worked for exploration. Let's see if violence works against Connie Lee. We just recently read that. I've passed the time, I've been inclined to tears, and afterwards inclined to laughter. Meanwhile, the world continues. So here, we don't have anything else to really study right now, so I'm going to start moving up certain types of lore. One question might be, well, what lore do I want to improve? This has kind of already been decided for me because, when I take a look, I was already looking at Lantern. And the big thing here is that Lantern's most likely going to be what will push me past the stag door. I still don't really remember 100% which principles will unlock which doors. But if I recall correctly, Lantern, I would at least, whether or not this is actually true, my first guess would be, regardless of any other considerations, Lantern and Knock should probably be the two that will advance you in most cases. Knock more so than Lantern, but I think there's a good argument for Lantern as well. And more importantly too, if you think of it, usually some people will find it through Moth, but very often the first trip to the wood comes as a result of Lantern lore. don't think there's an achievement that will indicate that, but if you take a look at, I'll just bring this up on Steam. So if we take a look at Steam, I know you can't see it on the screen here, but I'll dictate it. So if you go under global achievements, obviously this is a little different now that the game's always been available on more than one platform. For instance, it's been on GOG, but it's also on the App Store and I'm pretty sure Google Play. I'm a Apple user, so I not for the PC game obviously, but for the or maybe not so obviously, but for mobile I do use an iPhone. But those other, I think it's fair to say that Steam would give us a somewhat representative sample of the Cultist experience. And of the people who've played the game, 55.1, the most frequent achievement, or the most the achievement that the most people have gotten, 55.1% of players have formed the Mirror of Glory. Next up, 48.7 have fallen to despair. So in this particular case, it's fair to say if the Mirror of Glory is the first founding cult, chances are that's going to be because the first lore available is Lantern. My assumption, and really my assertion here, is that people are the first time they play the game are going to make the cult with the lore that they have available to them. They're not necessarily going to make a conscious decision, because of course the point of Cultist Simulator is that you learn the game while playing it. Just like there isn't a Cultists for Dummies book in the real world, you need to figure the mysterious world out, so you can't necessarily express a preference between the different cults until you've played the game and you sort of realize where some of the benefits lie. I mean, in the end, I don't feel that the choice of cult really closes you off from particular options. I think there's a small argument to be said that certain legacies are maybe a little bit easier with certain cults. The ability to bring people up to sort of the higher level helps out. But I think the Society of Saint Hydra is just an interesting, like, that has its own benefits. If you are of a particular temperament, or if you're trying to overcome a particular set of challenges, like, I don't think the fact that the Secret Histories cult doesn't have a specialist, I don't really feel like that's a defect of it, which is why I say that the cult in the end doesn't close you off. Anyways, a bit of a long-winded digression. Oddly enough, the most if you're curious, again, based on the Steam achievements, apparently the rarest cult that gets founded is the one I'm playing, the Church of the Bright Edge. It seems like only 5.1% of players have tried that one, which is kind of funny when you consider that edge cults are actually, the fact that you can have a really strong edge follower sort of really makes you very versatile in terms of being able to take out enemies, I guess, for lack of a better term. Anyways, a pleasant digression, but we should move back to the task at hand. So treasures lie before us. We are going to be generating a notoriety before too long. We are awaiting word on our mission on the Hunter. Let's take the Stag Door again. And we will try and upgrade the Lantern lore because it may bring me closer to the Spider Door, which of course just gives me more things that I can do with my followers. But no one could have survived that. Now and then, tenacious hunters somehow survive attacks that should have killed them, but their luck always runs out in the end, and there are other ways to destroy a hunter beside a physical assault. So, Connie Lee did in fact survive specifically because of her special abilities. She didn't become stronger though, so we're actually just going to send this percussagant back again. once a lady, the air is stale and the dust sifts worryingly down from the rock above, but the dead lie still. This chamber, with its chalked figures and ancient stains, looks promising. So this erudition might get gobbled up before I can use it. In a lead-lined sarcophagus lies the skeleton of a woman. She wasn't buried here. It looks like she crawled in to die. Something has happened to the shape of her skull, pushing out of the jaw like the muzzle of a beast. Scraps of rotting linen swathe her bones. Treasures among the remains of her... lie among the remains of her clutching hands between her ribs. So, more notoriety. We are going to have to deal with that. Doric Layla. So we got a bronze Spintrea for our troubles. We have a cracked Wildering Mirror, so we can actually start doing some of those repairs. And Betty's Blade. Sorry, I should probably read these. So, cracked Wildering Mirror, a deep crack runs across the shimmering metal. A forge aspected follower could repair it with sufficient resources, or I could use up what power remains in it. And Betty's blade, a cut from this blade will not cease bleeding until the wound is healed. One account has it that Betty was a knife-collecting surgeon highwayman in 18th century Toulouse. Another claims Betty is only a bastardization of an Arabic word for mosquito. So this will help us out with leveling up cultists if we so choose. But, of course, the real task right now is to move on to the next expedition. So, on a crumbling cliff above a grey sea, the Guer Inn squats until the day the sea comes for it. It receives few guests, fewer since the owner closed his notorious library to visiting scholars. So, we'll take the Percuskant and the Callagine first. Add the funds. We can reserve rooms at the inn easily enough, but we can expect the locals, if they divine our intentions, to turn nasty, and if the library is still there, it will be well hidden. So that suggests that we need some lantern. This is why it's unfortunate that the hint died, but we'll do our best with what we've got in the group. Okay, so winter here. Let's do the Painted River. And I will get back to reading these, but I'll try and let a couple rounds go by between reading particular lines. Alright, this would like knowledge, so let's give it its erudition, knowing that the season of ambitions might eat it up. Word. Interesting, so it decided to grab a reason this time. I think this just exhausts it. My minion has not returned. They must have failed. So, we've got 3 notoriety, which would be good for painting, but we probably want to get on top of that before too long. We don't have any influence that we need to get rid of. We've got a Season of Ardors coming up. So, in the meantime, let's bring Leo into the cult. It shouldn't be hard. One is ready. Leo is an earnest sort with an interest in the occult. He hangs on your hints about the invisible arts. Back to the Institute. So, we've got Watchers. We know how to deal with them. And a warded door. So in this case, it is actually just Forge that we need. So I think in this case here, we're going to wait. Well, you know what? The warded door probably shouldn't be that big of a problem, so we'll send Victor in again. And then we'll add the knock follower when we know we need it. Is there another? I always wondered what happens if you have more than one romantic option. My lover and I contend in the spaces above and beneath the flesh. I must match their intensity, so there's the exhausted reason. So, yes, it's dimmed reason. The light of the Mantis dims in me. I am less than I was. I need conversation. I must have those particular conversations. Before they speak the words, the novice must sharpen a knife so that it can separate a drifting thread, and it be not sharp enough, it will be the worse for them. Leo is an earnest sort, but he's prepared to do what he must. Okay, so first things first, let's submit some of these manuscripts. We've been waiting a while for them, so I have what was requested. Our strength is matchless. The Watchers will almost certainly regret standing against us. I've received the currency of the secret world, and my patron has let tantalizing information slip. Now, this is a little bit of a blunder because I'm creating more things for my heart followers to scoop up, but I think I'm just going to accept that now. I have what the doctor requested. We are going to need the Spintrea to deal with the repairs soon enough. So, and we need illumination. Oh, hang on. Provide fascination. Oh, I clearly wasn't paying attention to that. Okay, well, it seems to me like we should probably go to Moreland's shop then for an HQ. Well, light leaks through the cracks, my mind is brighter than it ever was. The higher I rise, the more I see. I had dreamt of the mansis behind the white door, of the great space above the orchard, the space that overlooks the bounds, the space where the vagabond once painted her river. Painted ships passed upon the painted river. I met the painted eyes of a painted captain. She saluted, and the motion was like the layered movement of clouds. The sail of the ship was amber, and the captain's eyes the green of new barley, and the river aquamarine. Now that I'm awake, I see those colors still. This may be bad, but we'll see how it turns out. Once again, we go through the stag door. Enid prefers to close her eyes rather than look at me. She says it hurts to look. She says it with such longing that I can't take offense. It's a bittersweet memory that may have consequences, but it'll also help if the fascination propagates, so... Alright. More erudition is good, more mystique not so good, and an iron Spintrea to show for my trouble. Let's start cleaning up my mess. There it is. Is that it? We've resolved the challenge. I don't know if we're out of the woods as far as the fascination is concerned yet, but we'll find out momentarily. Expedition continues, so now it's safe to add a forge follower. Of the place my dreams took me last night, this has been written. The ascent is glass, the walls are knives, each step is blood. I did not climb far, the pain was too great. When I woke, that pain remained with me, a pain that I could employ to occult purposes if I hurry. Actually, it occurred to me I probably should be as excited about Betty's Blade as I was, because I've had access to 10 intensity edge for a while now. It's really the lore that I need to upgrade, but that won't be very hard. In this case here, we just need health, prisoner. I have a few options. And let's set not sleep. We'll bring Tristan this time. Tristan tends to get underutilized. Alright, not very lucky for me there. Right, I've increased my mastery of the glorious lore, which we call by its aspect lantern. So we have the Fenian invocation, the door in the eye navigates, he is not merciful, but first and always he illuminates. So, got a new level of Lantern. I think the next thing I should do is either Moth or Winter. Well, that probably should go without saying, seeing as I already have... These are the ones with the higher level that don't have the next yet. So this would require Glimmerings or Sanctuary. Right, Fascination's going to be a problem. So this one I have the Silent Intensity, and I'm likely to continue to have the Erudition. So this seems to be the better option. So we'll study the Ragged Lore. We will take our pay. And let's just go back to the Institute. I don't think I'm ready to paint yet. Call upon the Forge of Days who ends all nights will almost certainly shatter this warded door. Alright, no one understands us, or else they understand us too well. So exploring with the Peculiar Rumor would be good for getting the remaining follower. In this particular case, we're just going to send Dorothy back out because we do want to get rid of the notoriety. Some of it's going to expire on its own, but I think it would be good for me to try and make a genuine effort to get that under control. We have a season of sickness coming up, but we did get the Course of the Heart from Dorothy doing her PR work. All doors must open as all lives must end. This door has met its end today. Something here today. Alright. There is a great chamber in the Mansis through which a painted river flows. The vagabond, it is claimed, painted it from memory in the years before she left the house. Certainly, there are histories concealed in its design. I traced them with my hand last night. There were fragments of aquamarine paint beneath my nails, flecks of gold leaf when I was done. So, let's get rid of the fascination first and foremost. So that will be done by adding the fleeting reminiscence. So, moment in time, and another moment I will be gone. So this wasn't always the case. It used to be that only Dread would get rid of Fascination, but I think Fascination was quite difficult in the old version of the game. So I don't mind the challenge, but I think for the overall approachability of the game, they made the right call. I hope you can't hear that alarm in the background. I don't really want to run off and deal with it, seeing as we only have a few minutes left. Anyways, all doors must open as all lives must end. This door has found its end here today. Let's see if I can remember that for next time. I think it still makes sense to keep earning money at the Institute. I don't have too many things demanding my attention. We'll grab the Erudition. We've already lost some to the event. Season of Suspicion coming up, so I may also try and make a move on Connie. Yeah, Mystique again, so if anything, I've just helped put a target on us. It does look, when I take a look at my notes, it does look like there's just a slight hint of that alarm in the background. I'll do my best to ignore it. Okay, sickness will hit us in 19 seconds, so yeah, we can just use the vitality and we'll be fine. And we blew it again. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to wait 13 seconds. Well, let's get the commission first. So I can make at least one of the notoriety go away. So he'd like a Secret Histories commission. Under normal circumstances, I would let this run. Oh, this is actually a really tough call. Well, we're getting near the end of the expedition, so we're going to generate a fresh notoriety anyway. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to arrange a meeting with Connie. Now, this isn't the strongest lore I can throw at her, but we are going to talk about the brighter invocations of the glorious lore. The door in the eye navigates. He is not merciful, but first and always he illuminates. Listen and be illuminated. This may tempt the hunter from their path, especially if they're already an idealist, but it will always increase your own fascination. The alternative would be Moth. Oh. Okay, those don't actually do the trick. Hint at the ragged lore. I'm not quite sure we have what we needed. So what I really wanted to do was have the high level winter lore ready. But we'll work with what we've got. This illness has damaged my health. I will need to rest before I'm fully recovered. So, take the affliction, grab the vitality. All I need now is time. The city is rife with journalists and detectives and other meddlers. How long will they leave me in peace? Alright. So, the White Library. The room is bleached and quiet. The chairs are pale wood. A table is topped with white marble. A low draft blows through the ill-fitting sea-facing casement. In winter, it must be insupportably cold. A white-painted glass case holds a shelf of books wrapped oddly in the coils of copper wire. So, good work, Tristan. More notoriety. Good work, Victor. Callaghan, we may need you. Pergusagant, less so. Gildersleeves. Grammar. Alright. Some new material for my mind. So, we've got Matthias and Amethyst Imago. Now, it's worth remembering that we do not yet know Aramaic. We can, however... Oh, nope. And the Concursum Diaries need Frisian, but the Shaven Lock Tantra is one that we can read with Sanskrit. And those who do not sleep, we will be able to translate as well. Alright, so Karasham's not going to get us any books, but we might as well go there to pick up whatever goodies we can. We also have a peculiar rumor, so let's go for broke and track down a new follower. That's going to generate notoriety, but that's life. Alright, so provide dread, use a pit, or silent intensity. Dread may breed, so we'll use the silent intensity to mitigate some of the negative effects. Someone is meddling. Oh, so we probably just provoked another adversary, if anything. I remember we had the two weary detectives in the old one. Aha, there it is. Is that it? You've resolved a grim challenge. There's always someone who doesn't understand or who understands this too well. This troublemaker may seek evidence on my activities to share with the authorities. Now, Wakefield, I seem to recall, was a tremendous adversary of mine when I was playing in the beta. So here we've got Inspector Wakefield, Zachary Wakefield, a melancholy but remorseless inspector of police. He's recently been seconded to the Suppression Bureau, so he's a hunter. The laws of civilization are younger than the laws of the hours, but they too sometimes require a sacrifice. This one is an agent of the law. Meticulous. This hunter always succeeds at creating evidence from notoriety. Grim. Grim hunters cannot be swayed by the allure of the glory, but their own despair may destroy them. So rather timely I got that winter, and they are mortal. They do not have the protections that Connie has. So we do have two named hunters coming after us now. Which would be a really great cliffhanger to end on, but let's try and get a little more progress before I go and deal with my alarm and otherwise get it done. Whenever the music ends, it's very pronounced for me, so I'm trying to talk over it. Yes, I could be something finer, but then we are less important than what we do. The world is where we live, and I will defend it till I die. You can keep your visions. This hunter has become grim. Alright, I can deal with grim. So, let's do... Decisions. Sickness is coming up. Let's get the Percussagant and the Callaghan to talk to each other for a little bit. Sick room grows close and stale. Time to get up. Okay, we get a free turn coming up. Dream-wise, let's do... I think we just got to do another trip to the Stag Door. Although this time we'll move up to the Spider Door. In dreams, the silken sands are the place that whispers. Gray grains sift, gray weeds quiver. I have read of the angular tracks one must follow, of the sands arched unseen, slow-stepping residents. An unpromising address, but a promising residence. Oh, interesting. Did we get everyone and I just didn't realize it? That's probably what happened. Okay, so normally here I would like to, I'd like to bring, you know, I'd like to go on the next expedition. What I'm going to do here is we're going to use the Forbidden Epic to try and unlock a new location because I've been preserving my summons with conversation. So we'll take care of that for now. Let's go back to working at the Institute. I do eventually need to generate some dread. That'll be done through the talk verb. Again, we've got a little bit of spare time. I've increased my mastery of the ragged lore, which we call by its aspect winter. So we've got the invocation of the ivory dove. There's a power that commemorates and grieves, from whom nothing is taken, but who cannot be deceived. You might expect to be able to crush him in your hand into bird bone fragments. So again, not the most reliable in terms of taking out Connie or Wakefield, but a little bit better than our previous attempts. So in the meantime, let's try and translate what we can. Let's go for the Shaven Lock Tantra to begin with. Lock the study door, the work begins. And we will... I'll at least wait for this talk verb to become available. Next up, we're going to do whatever commissions we can. And I suspect we're only really going to be able to set up for one expedition, or one more expedition, so a total of 4. But I can live with it. Okay, well that's going to be another dread that I earn. Let's start with Connie, as she's the greater threat. So perhaps I could parlay, perhaps I could send something to ambush them. So in this case, share the colder invocations of the ragged lore. There's a power that commemorates and grieves, from whom nothing is taken, but who cannot be deceived. I will tell you that power's name. Listen to me. This might sway the hunter from their path, especially if they're already grim, but it will always increase your own dread, which we can live with because of our fascination. In 2.9 seconds, we're going to be able to send the Callagine the Percussagant off. So I'm currently sick, but that's fine, because in 0.7 seconds, I'll be able to pay for medicine. Sands drain away like water, and beneath is the stone from which the gods arose so long ago. Ahead is the door, glistening like rain, its black surface beaded like blood, each drop heavy curved like a swollen tick. So we are going to do some terrible things with this door. It's actually the one that I'm the least familiar with, because I tend to play very timid cultists. So, medicine is dark and bitter like tar. It would be easy to suspect that I am being poisoned. Oh, an unusual vessel. I find an unexplained reference to Hebe in my research, and my attention is diverted. What is Hebe? A woman? A place? The name of an hour? So I think in this case we're going to have to resummon the Callagine. Let's get on that right away, because I think the same is going to be true for the Percussagant. So I suppose one thing I could do is get rid of the fascination that way. We have a Season of Ambitions coming up. Yeah, you know what? Let's do the Sunset Rite, because it gives me the chance to resummon the... Oh. Right. I can't, because the Callagine is a little different. So, wait a minute. What's the Sunset Rite doing there? So here we do need to use the Rite of the Crucible Soul. So in this case, we take the Callagine. I think we can still bring in the Icon of St. Agnes, but I believe we need Winter as well. So Forge for the Smoky Spirit, summoning Winter for its binding. It must know who will rule it. So the trick here is that the Callagine requires Forge and Winter, as it says in its description here, And the Callagine itself is a creature of moth and forge, which means that you don't have, unlike the Percussagant, which requires edge and heart, the Callagine does not actually have the elements required to summon it. And I believe none of the creatures of the Mantis have knock, so you can't use summons to sort of be your tool for summoning. They can be a participant in the summoning, but they're not sort of sufficient for... I think that's actually one of the reasons why you wouldn't have a knock creature. Is a knock creature, in theory, could kind of summon itself repeatedly. There may be other reasons for that as well, but that's... Mechanically, knock is a very difficult one to get a handle on. If you sort of think about how it works in terms of the game mechanics. Okay, but I think we're going to leave it there. We have translated the Tantra. I will read it when we do it next time, but as you can see, it's a very different pace and a very different tone from the Apostle Obstinate. It's not just because it's a base game legacy. We've definitely been trying to push ahead with some of our our actions here. I'll maybe try and talk about this a little bit more, but an interesting contrast here would be to see my relatively passive ways of playing in some of my other videos in contrast to what happens here. One thing I do tend to notice is that the more actions you take in Cultist Simulator, there do tend to be consequences, and they're not always positive ones. They're ones that will... like, it's sometimes tough to say... Like, you notice that when I deal with hunters, for instance, it's actually quite common for me to just not deal with them, or to deal with them in very minor ways. And one of the reasons for that is simply that, you know, if I have to deal with a weary detective, they're not always reliable on producing evidence. And it's generally something that I can contain. And so if I go and kill the weary detective, well, you know, it just means that I have people like Wakefield and Connie Lee to deal with, and it seems quite a bit more challenging. So in this case, just being able to manage the hunter through non-violent means, to me, is just the easier way of handling hunters. I've never actually really found hunters to be all that difficult. One of the achievements I do not yet have, I've definitely lost to being arrested, but I lost to being arrested way back in, you know, in the early days of Cultist Simulator before achievements were implemented. And so in this particular case here, I personally tend to find that some of these are a little bit easier to handle when sometimes when you ignore them. And the contrast that I want to draw is between what actions I think are sometimes rewarded in Cultist Simulator in the base game relative to Exile, which is a very, very different game. It's possibly the best of the legacies. There's some things I really like about the various DLC. There's some things I like about the base game, but I really feel that Exile marks a real shift and a real improvement in terms of the overall design, and it actually sort of stops. It's something that maybe encourages you to take certain actions. I suppose, again, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but in the case of the base game of Cultist Simulator, I sometimes feel like you are punished for doing things. Maybe not punished is the wrong word, but like doing things can sometimes make your life more difficult, and as a result it creates a disincentive. Whereas in Exile, you have to move. If you don't move, you are definitely going to lose. And I think what's interesting there is that you know, the choices don't have any less teeth in Exile. You will make decisions, you will take certain actions, and they will be things that will result in a loss. The same way that, you know, taking out the weary detective just means that you have an even stronger investigator coming after you. But in the case of Exile, you know, you're between a rock and a hard place. I hate using cliches, but you know, in the case of Exile, you know, you're kind of managing a really tough situation. Whereas in Cultist Simulator, you know, you kill the weary detective, and then Inspector Wakefield comes in, and you wind up arrested. You know, and you're like, okay, well, I'm just not going to engage with the Suppression Bureau anymore. Which, incidentally, is interesting within the lore of the game, right? Because there's very clearly occultists in this world who have been able to sort of make their peace with the Suppression Bureau, or at least be able to operate despite the existence of this entity. So again, it's not that it's a contradiction inside of Cultist Simulator, it's more just what I find interesting as a player. So, like I said, that's maybe something to unpack for a later video, but it is maybe something to sort of reflect on, because we've definitely seen that in play this time around. The more, I chose violence, and this has just simply resulted in more sticky situations for me. I'm definitely advancing, I'm definitely bashing through a whole bunch of expeditions and such, but the threats to me have grown, and there have definitely been some consequences for the decisions that I've taken. With all of that in mind, though, I've had a great fun sort of revisiting this old save file. I really psych myself up for playing what I have in mind for the next series. So I am eager to start that. But it has been fun to do something a little more freeform, something a little bit more like a fireside chat for Cultist Simulator. I hope you're all enjoying it. I know it is common for YouTubers to ask for comments, but given the fact that I know there is a request for longer videos and just like general sort of changes, this is a chance for me to experiment with this style. So if you have any feedback on it, I find it helpful. There's always the revealed preferences of what the YouTube metrics tell me, but I have gotten to see a few familiar faces, a few familiar names on the comments, and those I do value, right? If you're somebody who's sort of indicated that you like my stuff and you keep watching, it's helpful for me to know why you keep watching and what things work best for you. Certainly, I'll tell you, the best thing that I could do for YouTube would be to continue doing 12-hour videos, but that would not be conducive to broadcasting for the long haul. So, and I do want to be here for a while doing it. So yeah, with that in mind, this is a series I would particularly benefit from feedback from if you are so inclined, or you can just say hi. I always like hearing from people as well. If you want to help out the channel, please do consider a like, and if you've been following this stuff and have not yet hit the subscribe button, I'd appreciate you doing that, because it does help me get noticed, and it does tell the powers that be that I'm not shouting into the void. Until next time, though, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next episode.